Hello, anatomy students. We're talking about gas exchange today, and there are two places that, well, lots of places, but we can boil it down to two, where gas exchange is going to happen. The first place is in the lungs, and then the second place or places is in the tissues all over the body. Now, I want you to keep in mind that gases are going to move from areas of high pressure to areas of low pressure. So in areas of the body where we have a high concentration of oxygen, or we have lots of oxygen, we say that that area has a high partial pressure of oxygen. If it has a low amount of oxygen, we say that it has a low partial pressure of oxygen. And then the same goes for carbon dioxide. So we're going to start today with gas exchange that occurs in the tissue. And so what I have here is a capillary and a red blood cell. And what I want you to imagine is that this red blood cell entered the lungs, picked up a bunch of oxygen, and then all of that oxygen is bound to hemoglobin. And that's the notation that I have here on my picture. So HB is hemoglobin, and then the little subscript of O2 means that I've got oxygen that is bound to hemoglobin, making the molecule oxyhemoglobin. And so now this blood cell returned to the heart from the lungs, and then the left ventricle pushed it out through the aorta, and now it has traveled to some part of the body, which is represented by my orange cells here. These are the tissue cells. Now, because my red blood cells that are in my capillary are packed with oxyhemoglobin, the blood in this area has a high PO2, and that's what I was talking about at the very beginning. We have a high partial pressure of oxygen, and we have a low partial pressure of carbon dioxide because we've got more oxygen than carbon dioxide in this cell. Now, in the tissues, however, the cells here are constantly performing cellular respiration in order to generate ATP, and so they're constantly using oxygen. Our tissue cells have a low partial pressure of oxygen, and because they are constantly performing cellular respiration, they have a high amount of waste products. So they're generating a lot of carbon dioxide. So they have a high partial pressure of carbon dioxide. So what's going to happen when our red blood cell enters an area that is in need of oxygen? There's actually going to be a structural change in the hemoglobin molecule, and oxygen, which is represented by my little green circles here, is going to diffuse out of my red blood cell, out of my capillary, and into the cells. And remember, our cells need this oxygen in order to make ATP, in order to perform protein synthesis. But in the process, they're making up a lot of carbon dioxide, and they have to get rid of that carbon dioxide. So what happens is the carbon dioxide is going to diffuse from the cells through the capillary walls and into the blood. But carbon dioxide is not going to be transported into the blood. It's not going to dissolve in the blood. And so there's another step that has to happen. Our carbon dioxide molecules have to enter our red blood cell, and there it combines with water that is already present in the cytoplasm of our cells in order to form carbonic acid. That's what H2CO3 is in my drawing that I have here. And my carbonic acid is going to dissociate to form two ions, a hydrogen ion, which is shown by H+, and the bicarbonate ion, which is HCO3-. And then those ions are going to diffuse into the blood, and then that's how carbon dioxide is carried throughout the body in the blood as these two separate ions. And then the part that I just clicked on here is a little enzyme called carbonic anhydrase. That is the enzyme that drives the conversion of carbon dioxide into hydrogen ions and bicarbonate ions. So now our blood has changed. We now have a low PO2, so we have less oxygen than we did before, and we have a high PCO2. Even though my carbon dioxide has been separated into some ionic components, we can still say that we have a high PCO2 here. While now in my tissues at this moment, we have a high PO2 and a low PCO2. And I just wanted to back up here in order to call your attention to something. As I said at the beginning, your gases are going to move from areas of high pressure to areas of low pressure. And isn't that what we just saw? In the blood, we started off with a high PO2, and the oxygen moved to the area that had a lower partial pressure of oxygen. Whereas our carbon dioxide moved from an area of high partial pressure carbon dioxide, so it moved from the tissues into the blood, again, following that concentration gradient. Okay, so now what's going to happen is that our carbon dioxide rich blood, or our deoxygenated blood, is now going to be pushed through the body. It's going to return to the heart, and it's going to be pumped out to the lungs. So let's see what happens next. Now we're looking at gas exchange in the lungs, and really essentially this is just the reverse of what we saw of gas exchange in the tissues. And so once again, here's a capillary and a red blood cell. You can see that I have deoxygenated blood because I've got my pieces of carbon dioxide here, my hydrogen ions and my bicarbonate ions. And then over here, my pink blob, I guess, is the alveolus. So in the blood, I have a low partial pressure of oxygen and I have a high partial pressure of carbon dioxide, while in the alveolus, I have a high partial pressure of oxygen and a low partial pressure of carbon dioxide. Why is my partial pressure of oxygen so high? Well, because we are inhaling air from the environment, and the air that we're inhaling contains oxygen. So the oxygen is going to be inhaled through the trachea, through the bronchial tree, and it's going to enter the alveolar duct and enter into the alveolus itself. And so there are my little green circles that represent oxygen. And because my gas is going to move from an area of high pressure to an area of low pressure, where are my oxygen molecules going to go? Well, they're going to cross the respiratory membrane, which is here, which includes the wall of the alveolus and the wall of the capillaries. It's going to enter into my red blood cell and bind to hemoglobin, forming oxyhemoglobin. And so now my oxygen has, well, I guess we've got half an exchange there, right? Because the other half has to happen now too. We need to get the carbon dioxide out of the blood and into the alveolus. And like I said, it's just kind of like retracing your steps is what we saw in the tissues. So what happens next is that my ions, my hydrogen ions and my bicarbonate ions, are going to diffuse into the cell, and they are going to recombine with the help of carbonic anhydrase to form carbonic acid, which is what I have here. And then carbonic acid will dissociate to form water and carbon dioxide. That carbon dioxide is going to diffuse out of the cell into the blood, and then the carbon dioxide is going to diffuse across my respiratory membrane and into my alveolus, where we will exhale it into the environment. And now, if you look back up at the box that I have up here at the top, now I've got a high partial pressure of oxygen in my blood and a low partial pressure of carbon dioxide in my blood. My blood has now been oxygenated and it's ready to return to the left ventricle to be pumped out to the body. And so that is it for gas exchange. The only other thing that I want to make mention is that the respiratory system is responsible for regulating our blood's pH. Remember that when we have lots of hydrogen ions in our blood, that means that the pH of our blood is decreasing or it's becoming more acidic. And if that were to happen, then our respiratory rate would be stimulated to increase so that we could blow off more carbon dioxide. Because if we get rid of the carbon dioxide, we get rid of the hydrogen ions, and our blood's pH is going to start to become more alkaline and move more to the pH of 7.33 that it is supposed to be normally. Conversely, if you are hyperventilating, maybe you got nervous or you saw something that scared you, and if you can't regain control of your breathing, what's happening to the pH in your blood is that it's starting to rise. So when you hyperventilate, you're blowing off this carbon dioxide and you're causing the pH in your blood to become more alkaline, to become greater than 7.33, because you're getting rid of those hydrogen ions and making your blood more alkaline. And so the muscles that help you to breathe, the intercostals and the diaphragm, they're going to be stimulated to help slow your breathing in order to retain carbon dioxide for a little bit longer in your blood, in order to generate more hydrogen ions to lower your blood's pH back down towards that 7.33 mark. And so that's one way in which your blood pH is monitored is well, it's not monitored by the respiratory system. It's monitored by sensors that are found in your carotid arteries and also in your brain. But the respiratory system is the system that's going to help maintain the homeostasis of your blood's acidity levels. All right, that's all that I have for you today, and thank you so much for watching.